Welcome to the AG45 Soul Aligned Strategy Podcast, where business meets purpose, growth feels good, and results meet enjoyment. Hosted by Katherine Breuss, CEO and founder of AG45, this show is built on 30 years of hands-on experience across 4 countries, 3 businesses, and 1 incredible life raising 4 children. Katherine brings a rare whole-person perspective to business, strategy, and leadership. This podcast is for business owners ready to stop spinning, start aligning, and build a business that delivers real value while creating a life that actually feels like yours. At the end of the day, you are the engine behind it all. And when you're clear and aligned, everything moves with purpose. It starts with you. Let's dive in.
Well, welcome to the AG45 Soul Aligned Strategy Podcast. I want to introduce Brett Surinak to the show. We are really excited to have you. And Brett, I would love it if you could introduce yourself, tell the audience something about you, that you want them to know about you as a human, and then also your business.
Okay. So, we'll start with the professional side because that's always usually the easiest one that everyone kind of practices, right? So I'm the founder of Tech-Tastic, and what we do is we provide IT services and cybersecurity for manufacturers. That's it in a nutshell. We're a little bit different. So I've been in IT for, 25 years, and over the years, I found out that whenever we had a manufacturing client, the office was being taken care of really, really well. But all the equipment out on the shop floor, which nowadays has a lot of networking to it, a lot of analytics coming out of it, things along that line, was really not being supported in the way that it should, or even protected from cyber attacks, as we're starting to see more and more things like CNC machines get locked down. Some of the attacks are stopping even emergency stop buttons, so now we run into a safety issue from being protected. And that really bothered me because going back to my history is my grandfather was a tool and die maker or owned a tool and die shop. My father owns to this day a manufacturing plant. I grew up in those shops, in that shop that they had. And at a very early age, this is small family business, so you can start your kid at a very early age of 8 in there. And so I really started to understand what the different processes were, and I did it all. I started obviously at 8. I was doing like janitorial duties, but I worked my way up kind of through high school and that, working summers, weekends, all of that stuff, and got to be like a CNC operator. Even went to school for a year to see like, hey, do I want to go into mechanical engineering? Do I want to do CNC programming? Decided it wasn't exactly for me and went into the IT world. And that's really where I saw this gap really happening whenever manufacturers were being serviced by an IT company, and that they're only taking care of part of the business. They're not looking at this big holistic kind of view into the plant as to how this stuff, when there's a problem and you can't produce and you have this, because if you can't produce, you can't ship. If you can't ship, you can't invoice. You can't invoice, you're not getting paid, kind of thing. And just on how that kind of snowball is there. And 2, anytime one of those machines would go down, I saw exactly. I mean, being, the son's or the owner son, I really saw like these are dollars flying here, right out here every minute this thing is down for. And so that's a concern. So when I went into IT and I was helping these other, working for other people, IT companies that were consultants, and I just saw this big gap there. And it's like, hey, there are ways we can kind of help them get better analytics to see like when is the machine going to fail, or can we protect it for when the machine goes down, maybe it's not a cyber attack, maybe just, there's a failure on the machine altogether. How can we get the programming for that back up as quickly as possible and help that production line and help that production team out from an IT standpoint? So that's my professional um, thing in a nutshell. Digging a little deeper into me personally, I do a lot. If anyone knows me, I can talk for hours and hours and hours about scouting. Big scouter, Eagle Scout, have 4 kids all in scouting. Um, 10 years Cub Master, so really big there. Um, really like to see that. What I really enjoy about that the most is actually seeing and what it's helping um, kids become servant leaders for tomorrow, and ways that not only can they be self-sufficient, but how they can give back to their communities and how they can be those servant leaders. And that, servant leader, this is kind of like a buzzword probably for the last, 5, 10 years. And if you look back at it, scouting's had it for, well, decades, even like a century before it's been doing it. So that's what I enjoy there. And the other side of me too, personally, um, I'm, I'm husband and father, obviously, uh, but the other thing I am too is I do also service my church, which is St. Vincent Pallotti Catholic Church over on the far west side of Milwaukee, and I'm on the parish council there. So I do a lot with uh, helping the other parishioners out with deepening their faith.
Very cool. There's a lot of really good nuggets of information that I was grabbing listening to you, and very rich. And the first question that comes to my mind is, um, and I thought it was pretty funny. You've been working in since 8 with the
Yeah.
business. Um,
Well,
but
this was the 80s,
I
and
know.
mom had to run out and do her shopping on the weekend. She didn't want us kids around. Go with dad, go to work for the Saturday morning.
Hey, I think it's awesome. I really do. I mean, I know it's not like, it's not like um the child labor and you are, they had you chained to a desk or anything like that, doing stuff. I mean, it's how things worked. And I wish there was a little bit more of that in terms of not necessarily saying sending our kids to work at 8, but just understanding what hard work is and understanding like, starting from the bottom and having to go all the way up. But what I find is interesting too is that thought you were going to go down the route of a mechanical engineer, and then you
Mhm.
decided IT. So I'm really curious, like, what was it that made you go, you know what? I don't want this. I want that.
So interestingly enough, yeah, is like I was like, okay, maybe I'll be like a CNC programmer. So really what it was is it was actually called mechanical engineering technologist. Okay. Up at Michigan Tech. There's kind of 3 different levels when you look at engineering. So there's engineers that actually those are the guys that are doing, the paperwork, the plans, and all that. There's technologist, which is what I was going for, which what you do is you do the setup of the production line and you get that kind of going, you figure that all out and you keep it there. Then there's the mechanical engineering technician, which makes sure that that product line kind of keeps going. That's the world what I was in. So, or I was in the technologist, the middle one. So it was a little bit more hands-on. I did enjoy it. The thing I didn't like about it is when we started to get into, stress points, and like materials and knowing how much, each the tensile strength of different materials and the calculations and the math that goes in with that. I was like, I just want to build stuff, really. Um, but I did like the when we did get into like the CNC programming and that, and so I flipped actually from that type of programming to computer programming, and then went into networking and so on from there. So yeah,
That's really cool. So and it sounds to me that you recognized that there was a bit of a misalignment in terms
yeah.
what you really wanted to do. And so would you say making that choice to go into IT and cybersecurity and all of the aspects, that is much more aligned to who you are and what you want.
Yes, it is. And what I'm doing today is even more aligned. Um, I think because I still really like the manufacturing world.
Hmm.
Um, I, I went out and I got certified in uh, Six Sigma, um, even, which is very much a manufacturing platform because I loved this is one of the things I absolutely love is I love looking at um, these these production lines and being like, how can we take steps out of here to still get it going? I absolutely love that. And I actually apply that to my business in the different workflows too. So not just, Six Sigma started in the manufacturing world. Um, and it's how can you still have a really good quality going on, um, and and then do some lean where you actually remove a few steps in there too.
Be more efficient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's
And
the
I absolutely love that.
so you're really aligned because the IT side of it is aligned to you, but then
Yes,
also the clients and who you're working with, the manufacturer.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I absolutely love working with these clients, especially the ones that are manufacturers. They're at first they're all like, yeah, this the IT guy, he doesn't know production, he doesn't know whatever this. And I start to talk to them that and they're like, you get us. You get us. You know. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I get you. I feel your pain. I've been there, you know.
I thought for a second you're going to say, I see dead people. You just bored.
So, but yeah, so that's the really fun part about mine, or one of the many fun parts that when I'm having conversations with these manufacturers and I sit down and we get to know each other. Uh, they're like, you're not like the standard IT person that comes in here. Um, you understand that you can't do an update in the middle of our day. You can't take our machines offline. You understand too you need to make sure that these are backed up so that when a hard drive fails, when the it gets wiped out for whatever reason, you can help us get this back up and running. So, so yeah.
That's really cool. And I love the nicheness, being specific to manufacturing. Um, So, Brett, in terms of besides when there was a bit of misalignment, maybe not massive, but going down that mechanical engineering side, has there been a time in your business where you felt misaligned and the impact that has, and it may not even be with your business, it might be somewhere else.
Sure. So before I started this business, I felt misaligned with a little bit with IT because of that, because of the way IT was with manufacturers. And my bosses usually knew that, hey, this guy's good with manufacturers. Let's have him work with them, right? Um, and so the thing I didn't like though is that when you're going into that world, there's certain additional IT tools you need in order to do that, or things you need to worry about and things like that. And I had this happen a couple times where I was like, hey, we really need to service these people better. We really need this tool or we really need this plan. And I was being told, no, we can't do that. That's not our job. Stay out of it, kind of thing. Um, Sometimes rather forcefully. Um, uh, and so I really didn't like that. And before I started this, you talked about soul aligned. So I was actually sitting in church, uh, and wondering kind of like, what am I going to do here? I was at a point where I was like, I'm not liking this. I'm at a place, this is a low place. I don't want to go to work every day. I'm, you know, I'm trying to help out this manufacturer, but I'm being told, no, you can't work the way you're supposed to. And so I was sitting there And the gospel reading that day was from Matthew, which was the parable of the talents. Now, if you don't know what that um, so basically what it is about um, a master that gives his three servants some talents, which is a bit of money at the time, to go ahead and to take care of that while he is gone off wherever. He said, I have to leave, you take care of this. And he bestowed these talents, or he gave them these talents. And he gave them different amounts. The first two went ahead and they used those talents to to do more with it. The third one sat there and buried their talent. So because they were afraid that they were going to lose it. Well, the master came back and was very upset at this third one for burying their talent. And so I sat there and I was just like, this is me right now. I feel like if I stay here, which I could do, I could tough it out, I could stay here. I'm burying my talent. I am not allowing myself to thrive. And so that's when things really, I would say, started to become so aligned for me, would be at that time.
Mm.
And I still remember where I was sitting in the church that day and everything. It just really spoke to me. And so I guess that's the thing that I have to say to everyone is make sure you're in a place where you can thrive, where you can use, we are all given these talents, whether you believe it's from a higher power or just from society, we all have talents to give and to make sure you're giving them back. So, yeah, so that was the big one for me.
I love that. And I would ditto everything in terms of what you said in terms of the importance of this. And we have been all given gifts. And even most of us who even access that, there's more we can access. Like there's more that we can get more in alignment with it and give to the world, which, ultimately does give back to us in some shape or form. What's interesting too, that when we think about like our work and, especially as business owners, the amount of time we spend in it. And if you're not truly aligned, man, I don't know. I just sit and kind of think like that's a lot of time wasted.
Yeah. Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be better if you enjoyed it? Now, so on that aspect, I mean, soul aligned is one thing, and it's, and as we define it, AG45 is, and what you've said, it's knowing who you are and your talents, and it's integrating it into everything that you do. And because we talk about business, it's about integrating that into the business. Um, but I also see people who are soul aligned and they started their business, it's very much in alignment. But the piece that was missing is the strategy piece. And for us,
Hmm.
what we describe as strategy is that it's not only understanding the business strategy, but it's then the execution, the business acumen, and how to actually do it. And that's where I see sometimes, if they're soul aligned, it's that piece that's missing. So, how do you do that in your business?
So it, the I'm sorry. The strategy part we're talking about.
Hmm.
Okay, so the strategy part. Um, so it from an operations standpoint, no problem. Strategy is perfect there. Efficiency. My clients are well taken care of. They get a great customer experience. All of that's going great. The part that I wasn't prepared for, the part where my strategy is struggling, that I have been working out and I have been diving into head first into everything, would have to be getting the word out,
Hmm.
that sales and marketing piece. Because I know the operations side, that sales and marketing piece, that's new to me. Um, and has, that's the little bit of me that, um, where I would say that my strategy needs improvement by all means, because it's so new to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to make sure too that while I'm doing this, like you said, um, to make sure that it's soul aligned.
Mhm.
You know, I don't want to be that guy that's, just, that swarmy salesy guy. Because that's not me. I'm not going to do it.
It's so
I'm not gonna do that. And that's just, because I mean there are you know um and that's not a knock on, I don't want to knock on legitimate true salespeople that do a fantastic job, that really take their customers through it. I'm talking about the ones that are just kind of like, we're doing the sale and we're just moving on to the next one, and people are numbers type thing. That's not me, you know and I don't want to be that. So.
and that's, I hear this from a lot too, from business owners. And sales, unless they came from a sales background,
Mhm.
um, if they didn't, I find that this is one of the hardest pieces. That and financials, I find, are a lot of it's what business owners find difficult. Um, and I don't know, I say that with sales, that unless you're actually scamming somebody, or selling something that somebody doesn't need, it's that it's a lot of it is also mindset shift in terms of going, if you truly are providing value, then there's nothing to be and ashamed is maybe like the wrong word, but frightened about a sales, or thinking it's sleazy, or
Mhm.
whatnot. And I can't imagine that you would ever show up as sleazy.
Well, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
an Eagle Scout.
Yeah, well, and too, like I said, that's something that, like, I've read some of these books, and apparently I might be reading the wrong ones, or I might be doing the wrong research or whatever. And they tell me to do something. I'm like, this isn't me. No, 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 no. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I'm I'm not going to do that kind of thing. Um, so, I truly want to go out there and help, and be helpful through the whole process. Otherwise, I won't be aligned, you know.
Yeah,
So.
and I would say too, and just even a little bit of a, maybe it's a little bit of a challenge, and maybe not, because they do hear this from business owners as well. And I think it's this whole thing of, well, what is helping and what is actually starting to be detrimental to the business. And so
Mhm.
it's that kind of balance of, staying true to you, but also there's a business to run. And so
Right.
ultimately people are in business, yes, to make an impact, well, not all, but the ones that we work with, and but also you got to make money. I mean,
Right.
that's it's like, we're not talking about necessarily being greedy billionaires or anything, but it's, we gotta have our own personal wealth too.
Right.
So, Brett, in terms of advice, so your experience in your business to date, which is it three is it three is your business been open for 3 years?
We're coming up on 3 years here this month,
Nice.
or
Okay.
in August.
So what advice, if any, like, if there's, I'm sure there's a lot, but if there was like one piece that you could like share to someone else that might be in the early stages of business,
Mhm.
what would that be?
Um, I would say, really, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. Okay. So, piece of advice that you think a business owner in the early stages of business would be very useful for them. What might that be?
Um, my biggest thing would really be is making sure. My thing is, but maybe it's because it's my struggle, it
Mhm.
would honestly be figuring out, what's your sales and marketing look like, and really figure that out. And um, and two, don't think like an employee.
Mm.
You can't be thinking like an employee. I've seen, I didn't do this, but I've seen enough people do this and fail, where they're like, oh, I got to have an office, and I got to have all this other stuff, or all this other stuff like delivery kind of stuff figured out. Like, you don't need it figured out exactly perfectly. You do have to figure it out at some point. You are going to have to do that delivery, and you might have to have some things lined up. But people spend too much time on that side and not enough on filling the pipeline on the beginning.
Mhm.
So making sure that you're going to have that constant flow coming in, in that of leads, of customers coming in, and so that's a big thing. The other thing is, don't be afraid of failure.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. Um, you're gonna stub your toe. You're gonna fall down, get back up, keep going. The important thing is you need to fail fast. And so what I mean by that is, if you're gonna fail, decide you need to be able to know exactly when, hey, this isn't working. I need to stop dumping my resources, my time, my money, my team's time, whatever, into this, and I need to change and I need to pivot. That is something that I did a little bit with my business early on. Is I was kind of going one direction, and I found out, unfortunately, there's not really a market for it yet. So I pivoted slightly. We were doing a little bit more of workflow automations and things along that line, um, with it for manufacturers. We still do that. We do that on the side, um, but we found out really there's a bigger need in keeping these machines safe, um, and cybersecurity. So we had to pivot actually at that point. So
Yeah, so the couple things that I hear, yeah, I love that. Don't think like an employee, because you're not. It's a very different mindset. And I do see corporate people who've been in corporate their entire lives, and then they just decide to build a business and they think it's the same, and it's a really rude awakening that
it
they're
is.
like, whoa. I mean, normally they're buying a business, they're buying a franchise or something like that. But so that's really important, that mindset. And the fail fast, absolutely. And to that whole piece of failing fast, I would say is that here's where I see business owners, and particularly entrepreneurial business owners, they pivot too quickly, and they're squirrel, or they're changing too quickly
Mhm.
without trying something. And this is where being strategic is so important, because when you are strategic and you've got a really clear plan for today as well as 5 years down the road, you know when and how to pivot. It becomes
Right.
so much clearer on that. So I think that is, I think really, really good points.
Yeah, and in that strategic plan that you make, know what your metrics are, where your KPIs are for that strategic. So when you see these starting to fall, okay, now we have to pivot. You're going to continue on with it. Now's the time. It's not just a gut feeling kind of thing.
Correct.
So
Yeah. You know, um, Brett, it has been a real pleasure to have you here with us. Want to thank you so much for your time and everything you shared. And there's so much that I really enjoyed about our conversation.
great. Excellent. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on the AG45 Soul Aligned Strategy Podcast. If you're ready to align your soul with your business, take back your time, and grow with intention, we'd love to connect. Visit accelerategrowth45.com to schedule a call, apply to be a guest, or take the next step toward building a soul-aligned business. At AG45, we believe when business meets value, wealth meets legacy, and time meets freedom, the journey becomes truly enjoyable. Until next time, stay aligned, stay inspired, and keep building your legacy.